Welcome to the Your Audio Solutions podcast, episode 2. Last week, we spoke to mixing engineer Bob Horn, who has worked with Michael Jackson, Usher, Timbaland, all those legends. So if you haven't checked that one out, check it out. But in this week's episode, we have Steven Slate from Slate Digital, who does great plugins, drum replacement, the Raven console, microphones, interfaces. Great company, cheap, affordable plugins. I use them all the time. So if you don't know them, I recommend you to check them out. But in this conversation, we talked about Steven starting out in Boston, him moving to Los Angeles, promoting his drum samples to get a job in the industry. We also talked about what recording studios can do to stay competitive in a new market, the importance of having mentors, and also creating a roadmap for your goals. Or as Steven puts it, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. I think you're going to enjoy this conversation. It's a shorter one than usual, but there's a lot of good nuggets in there that I think can help you in your career. But before we jump into the conversation, I want to promote this new free guide that you can get on youraudiosolutions.com. It's called 3 Tested Ways to Increase Your Client Base. So if you're a home studio owner or a professional audio engineer, but you're struggling to find clients, or maybe you're wondering where to start and you have no clients, perhaps you're struggling what to say or write to bands to make them come back to you. That's why I put this guide together for you, and it's free. Just go to youraudiosolutions.com and you can learn my tested email script that will help you start talking to new clients online. Also, a great technique I call the coffee technique, which has landed me many great opportunities in recording studios and other opportunities around town. And I will also introduce a topic that has changed how I think about pricing and how I think that can be beneficial to you. So rather charging hourly or whatever, it makes you start to think about value rather than time. Great concept, so check that one out too. But yeah, over to Steven, and I hope you enjoy it. So I like to start in the beginning, because I know you grew up in Boston, right?
I grew up in New Jersey and then lived in Boston when I was in my teens.
Right. So how did your life look back then? Were you playing in bands,
Yes, I
musician?
was doing a lot of music, and I was just a lover of music, and I got into recording at an early age. And when I was in high school, I was interning at studios by the time I was 15, and I really fell in love with the craft.
Right. Nice. And what was the kind of music you were playing back then? Were you into
A
specific
lot of
kind?
Beatles, classic rock. So back when I was a teenager, I was trying to record a lot of classic rock inspired stuff. And then by the time I got into college, it kind of turned more into hard rock stuff because that was really popular at the time.
Right. So who were some of your favorite bands?
Man, I'm kind of have an eclectic taste now, but back then it was a lot of stuff like Deftones and Nirvana, Soundgarden, Pearl Jam, 3 Days Grace. A lot of the Seattle stuff I'd liked, Alice in Chains, but classic rock stuff from the Beatles, Stones, Traffic, Cream. I loved Jack Bruce's voice, and yeah, I mean it was a pretty eclectic rock taste, I guess. Everything from old and new rock. Now it's much more diverse now. I mean, as before we were speaking, I was just listening to some C notes, some hip hop, and you know, I love almost anything these days. I was listening to my friend Jeff just mixed a band called Dan and Shay, and there's a country act, and they're great. So really, anything that sounds good, I'll listen to.
Nice. I guess that comes with the age, I guess. Not that you're old or anything, but yeah. your music tastes
I think so.
diverge.
Yeah, I think you learn to
Yeah.
appreciate more. You open your mind up as you age, and you don't close things off. At least that's certainly the case with me.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, same here actually. Um, so what made you decide to move to LA from Boston then? Well, if you
Well,
moved to Boston to LA from
my
Boston,
goal
or
about moving to LA is I thought there would be more opportunities in the music business, and I was correct.
what did you find when you got there?
The music industry. It's here.
That's
That's
good.
what it is. That's where everything's here. So
Yeah.
if you are making swimsuits, you probably don't want to live in Anchorage, Alaska.
No. So was that when you started doing those drum samples and things?
I started the drum samples back in Boston, but they were certainly a huge asset when I moved to LA because I used them as a means of getting attention.
Mm. Yeah, because I mean, obviously, you've said that many times before that you used your drum samples to hand out to um, engineers and producers around LA, right?
That's correct.
Um, so just wondering, how did you go about selling them, so to speak? Like, what was your? I mean, I don't know if you had a script or anything, but did you have something prepared so you know what you were going to say, or you just winged it?
I don't really remember. I think I just winged it as introduced myself and said I was a huge fan and kind of just said, hey, I make these drum samples that you can use on mixes. They're some cool one shots. Hopefully you like them. And my number was on the CDR. That's how it happened. I mean, it was the pretty quick conversations, and it somehow worked.
Nice. Well, because you got noticed by quite a few engineers, right?
I
That love
did.
your
I
samples.
gave it to the top, the top brass. So it ended up working because all it took is one or two of those guys to get on it, and then it pretty much spread from there. And I had a pretty good marketing campaign saying, "Hey, look at the fact that Mike Shipley's using my drum samples. Look at that Jay Baumgartner's using my drum samples. Chris O'Dowd's using my drum samples." So it worked out really well.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Um, I mean, so did you make? How did you make the drum samples back then? Because I assume you didn't have a studio, or did you rent studios, or how did
Well,
you go about it?
I had a studio in Boston,
Right,
record drum 2-inch tape. I'd put them into Pro Tools, and we're actually Cubase at the time, and I'd slice them up and export them.
right. uh, and were these? How should I phrase it? Did you record them any different back then than you would do later on, so to speak, when you had more gear and stuff, or was the
I actually had a lot of gear back then. I had a lot more gear. Now I have basically no gear, but back then I would just, yeah, I'd run them through some EQs and compression. I'd make them sound good, and I'd compress the drum rooms. And I think what I was known for back then was having them sound very radio ready. I guess that was the word that a lot of people use for my drum samples. It sounded like they were radio ready.
right? So they can just slam them on and use them.
Exactly.
Nice. I mean, because obviously after the drum samples, that sort of took off the your career as it is now, I guess, with the whole plugins and drum samples and the console, the Rave, and all those sort of things. Was it hard to accept that that might be the route rather than the route you initially set out to do?
I think I accepted it pretty quick that this was working, and that maybe the concept of me being this big famous mixer producer wasn't in the cards, and I kind of enjoyed what I was doing and it was working, and it got to the point where I became too busy doing it that I had no other option. I just became so enwrapped in creating product at that point that I had no other options, and I still don't. I mean, once I got a lot of success and my name became fairly big in the industry, I had some labels and producers asking me to mix their stuff. I just didn't have time. It wasn't
Mm,
something I was actually even interested in at that point. I just like doing it, on my own time.
right. Yeah, because you still do mixing stuff, obviously, right? But yeah,
I
when
do
you
mixing stuff
yeah.
when it's related to the company. Like if I can use it as a tutorial. So a friend will say, "Hey, we need this thing mixed." I say, "Great, can I use it as a tutorial, or can
Mhm.
I use it somehow?" And if the answer is yes, then I'll do it.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. I mean, also considering how the record business went, maybe it was also like a blessing in disguise.
I certainly would say that that could be a fair statement.
So, just talking a bit more about your plugins. Obviously, you released many great plugins. I use your plugins. They're great.
Thank
Uh,
you.
and so, but when you did start out, did you do like a lot of research before, like to know what the market wanted, or was
Yeah,
it?
I did. The
Yeah.
research I did was just being on the internet and talking to people, listening to people, and trying to learn what the problems were. And I think one of the skills I figured out early on was learning what the problems were before people even realized that they were problems.
Mm.
The summing through consoles and you know trying to figure out, well, why are people summing through consoles? What are consoles doing? And can we do it digitally? And the answer was yes. And that's when the VCC came out.
Was that online? You said you did that. Was that on forums and things?
Yeah, we started out mostly just online advertising.
Right. Yeah, because I talked to um, Fabrice as well a few months ago. It's really quite interesting hearing his thoughts about the tape machine you released. You know how much
Yeah,
you actually discovered about tape. You know how
yeah,
weird it was for him. What was your experience with that? Was that the same maybe?
yeah. The tape was a pretty tumultuous development cycle because the tape does a lot of weird things, and to recreate them and figure them out was quite an experience. Back then, it was stressful. Now it's obviously quite rewarding, but I think it proved to be a great working relationship between Fabrice and myself, where we used technical and creative skills together to form something that is quite beautiful.
Yeah, exactly. And is your working relationship still the same, as in you bounce ideas around, or do you work differently today?
I think it's still similar now. A lot of the times, I'm working with some of our other DSP engineers, and yeah, but I would say it is still similar.
Okay, cool, man. And you're the person usually coming in with the idea, or is it also Fabrice?
I'm the lead product designer, and so yeah, I'm still the guy who goes over the concepts. Having said that, there are certainly some great input from our team. We have an incredible team. Everyone's very talented, very creative. So while
Hmm.
I'm the product designer, there's certainly a lot of input and ideas that come from the team too.
Right, right. And was it? I guess you had to learn how to build a team over the years, right? Or did that just come naturally in the beginning?
Nothing has come naturally. Uh, you learn everything. Some things you learn easier. Some things you learn because you screw up so many times. But yeah, it's not easy. But yeah, you definitely, when you get thrown into it, you have to learn. It forces you to figure things out, and I definitely had to figure some things out.
Yes. What were some of the things you had to figure out starting out, for example?
There's too much to name, but just trying to figure out how to problem solve, how to overcome obstacles, how to work with other people, how to motivate people, how to lead people. These are all things that take time, experience to master, and I still haven't mastered all of them, but I'm getting better.
Well, that's nice, man. So how? Maybe it's different now because you've been doing it for a while, but um, did you find it hard to stop working? You know, because maybe there was so much to do that. Did you ever feel overwhelmed with work in the beginning?
I don't think I felt as overwhelmed in the beginning. I definitely feel more overwhelmed now because as we grow and get bigger, it's more and more, and the stakes are higher. But overall, I love what I do, and I can't really complain. I wake up in the morning, I'm motivated to come to the office.
Hmm. Yeah, that's great, man. That's the sort of job you ultimately want. I think for most people.
Yeah,
um,
absolutely.
yeah, and I saw this great documentary called Gateway Sound. You were in it, obviously.
Okay.
Um, I don't know if you saw it or not, but
Yeah, I remember it. I remember it
yeah.
viewing.
And there was some really cool. There was a topic talking about the recording studios and they're dying and what studios should do now to stay open. Um, and yeah, you were in it. You were talking about how they need to offer something different nowadays, like recording studios.
Yeah,
So what would be something they would have to change, in your opinion, today?
it's not about change. It's about focusing on making sure that you're offering an experience. I mean, it's the same thing about like it's almost like hotels versus Airbnbs. Why would you stay at a hotel versus an Airbnb? An Airbnb could be considerably cheaper in some cases, not all cases, but the point is the hotel offers you more. It's a service. It's got a restaurant. It's got good food. It's got a maid service. So it's really about explaining to people what the benefit of a commercial studio experience is over a home studio experience, and that has to be pushed more than ever. It didn't used to have to be pushed as much because there was no competition. There was no competition between a pro studio and a home studio. Now there is.
Mm.
In fact, you're hearing a lot of great records that are made at home studios. That's something that if I was running a commercial studio, I'd have to figure out how to combat that. And it's not just about the hospitality aspect; it's many other different aspects, and you have to get creative to figure out how you can push, the fact that your experience is somehow different and or superior, so that you can continue on with business. And the studios that are still in business are following that quite well.
Oh, okay. Nice. I mean, so how would you do it if you were to open a studio today? Any thoughts that come to mind?
No,
No.
it's not something I want to think about.
No, sure.
so,
I
so
guess.
so far from my mindset. But again, it would be. I'll generalize the answer. The answer really is I'd have to figure out how I can promote an experience that
Mm,
would make people want to go that route over a home studio.
yeah.
And it would not be based on you will sound better here. Well, maybe in some cases, because you can say you can mix better in the control room because it's tuned, or record better in the live room. But overall, it's got to be it's bigger than just the sound.
Yeah.
Someone could certainly argue that you can get great sound in a home studio now. So you'd have to figure out how to promote experience that is a way that you can convince people is superior.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that could be like booking Ubers for the artist, I guess, for example, or having food ready. That's just something
Or a
akin.
place, a residence, so they could stay and they can record. I mean, who knows? There's just so many different ways to do it. The question is, what's going to work. And like I said,
Yeah.
I want to be in those shoes.
Yeah, yeah. For sure. I get that. Nice, man. Um, so when it comes uh to the business side of things, do you have a mentor you consider, a person you consider as a mentor, I guess the right phrasing is?
Yeah, I've got a lot of mentors actually. I've got a number of people from different businesses who have been really great to me over the years and have shared a lot of different things with me. So yeah, I think it's important to have mentors.
Anyone you would like to mention or keep
I'll
quiet
mention
about?
one, which is Jay Baumgartner. He's not only a business owner, he owns NRG Studios,
Mm.
but he's also a great creative mind, and he's just a brilliant guy, and he's offered a lot of great advice over the years.
Nice. Any of those advice you could share with us?
Again, nothing that specific comes to mind, but but what I will say is that for anyone going into business, it's very important to have mentors and be able to share ideas with people and share ideas with people who have more experience than you do. So I think it's a great concept.
Yeah, for sure, man. And how is it on the recording, music side of things? Any mentors there?
Well, yeah, I mean, like I said, Jay falls into both categories. He's a great
Right.
business consultant, and he's also a great person as a recording consultant because the guy's, got tons of platinum records to his name. So it's always a good person to ping ideas off.
Yeah, exactly. But do you think this might be a stupid question? So, but we'll see. But sometimes I wonder, and not talking about this guy, but just in general, do you think sometimes that platinum records equals expertise?
Not
Or
always, but it certainly can. In the case of Jay, it certainly does. The guy's got
yeah.
platinum records because he's excellent at what he does.
Mm. I actually heard a video, or I saw a video with you in it, and you were talking about the importance of having, a plan, a set of goals, and a strategy to achieve those goals.
Yeah.
So I just wonder if you can expand on that mindset a bit and why it's so important.
Well, frankly, a lot of people are lazy. And they say, okay, well, I want to do something, and they don't take the time to properly think things through and create an end game and create a plan and a roadmap. And I find it to be a very counterproductive procedure and a counterproductive method if you're trying to achieve your goals and achieve success. So I always recommend that, before you jump in the water, you make sure you know where the end of the pool is, and you know what stroke you're going to use, and you know if there's any sharks in the water. And just, I guess the old adage is, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. It's something I found to be extremely true.
Hmm, that's interesting. How has that been for you then? What you just said.
I think it's doing pretty well so far. I think it's helped me a lot. That mindset of trying to be very calculated and figuring things out before jumping in the water, and before
Right.
taking a road trip, making sure you map your route out.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And then you also have to deal with, trying to achieve the goal, but falling down, trying again, falling down, trying again.
Part of the roadmap has to take that into account. It has to anticipate obstacles, and that's one of the most important parts about creating a plan. Having contingency plans and having secondary plans, and figuring out how to overcome obstacles. That's part of the things that have to be mapped out. And I
Mm.
actually recommend people write things down, and write down bullet point lists, or write down maps, and write down a web of different aspects of trying to achieve a goal. It makes things a lot easier. It goes back to something as simple as, if you're, trying to create swimsuits, maybe move to a climate where there's a lot of swimsuits. If you're trying to, this is not that I recommend this, but if you are trying to, win at blackjack, know the numbers, know how it works. If if you're totally green and have no idea how really blackjack works, other than, hey, you don't want to hit 21, you're probably going to do pretty bad, or at least statistically average. But if you know, the numbers and the mathematical equations behind blackjack, you'll have an advantage. So
Mm.
strategy works.
Yeah, exactly. And do you keep do this plan, and does it change over time?
What do you mean?
No, so I mean, if you, I guess you have business goals and personal goals that perhaps keep changing. Do you still go back to the same um,
Well,
technique,
what
so
I'm
to speak?
talking about is a procedure. It's a methodology.
Right.
It could be as simple as, what's a method of me, losing weight? What's a method of me, releasing a product X? I mean, everything is based on this thing where, here's my end game. So for instance, last year I said, you know what, I want to lose weight. So, I wanted to get a little fitter. So I made an end game plan of, all right, I want to lose X amount of pounds. So then I started doing the research, and I started figuring out, okay, what kind of diet plan I would need to go on, and then I had an exercise routine, and then I said, okay, well, if I start to plateau, here's a concept that works for people who want to who are plateauing. Sorry, maybe I just lost you there, but I was saying that, I was researching all these things with exercise plans, and I said, okay, well, I'm going to start doing this diet, and I'm going to start doing this exercise routine, and every morning I'm going to take these supplements, and guess what? I lost 15 pounds.
Mm.
And, it's no different when you're creating a product. Okay, we want to create this product, and first of all, we've got to define the why of the product, and who's going to buy it, why they're going to buy it, how are we going to market it, how is it going to get done. I mean, so there's the why, the how, and just again, it all comes down to an end game, and then starting from the end game, and then defining, okay, what do we need to do to get there?
Mm. It's really interesting that you actually take into account what to do when it goes wrong, or if it goes wrong, and what people do to go around those problems, as you said with
Sure.
the weight thing. Um, that's actually a really good strategy, because I think that can help a lot of people,
I
myself
hope so.
included. Yeah.
Sure.
And how do you go about anticipating problems that can happen? Is that also down to research, I guess?
Yeah. It's just about thinking things through. What are possible issues? I mean, that's a part of the of the planning is, what are
Mm.
things that can go wrong? Okay, well, this can go wrong. That can go wrong. How can I overcome those? What can we do? Let's just keep on branching out, and it kind of becomes like this spider web.
Mm.
And I've drawn out some of these plans. It almost looks like a web, because you're drawing out this whole system that is all meant to figure out how to get to your end game. But it's all, you start at the end game though, and you back up from there.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. And do you give yourself a time limit to achieve the goals, or whatever it can be?
that maybe the time limit is part of the plan. Hey, my end game is
Right.
to do this at this time, so therefore we have this amount of time to do it. How do we do it?
Right. Makes sense. And are you okay with something taking longer than expected, or is that when do you go into a sort of a mode like gotta get this done sort of thing?
I mean, certainly time crunches are always an issue, but yeah, again, it goes back to planning. The better things are planned out,
Right.
the better you have your roadmap complete and detailed, the better you'll do. And sometimes you don't get there, and you've got to work on different contingency plans, and that's part of the game. We
Yeah,
always
yeah. Yeah, exactly, man. That's very cool, actually. I mean, the same thing can be applied to anything, I guess, in life. Like if you want to make a record, start with the record, go back, blah blah. What can happen?
it
Uh,
literally is everything. There's nothing that this process does not work for.
yeah. So how when did you come up with the plan? Was that recently or fairly long ago?
Come up with what?
This sort of plan, starting in the end, planning everything in detail.
I've been doing this for about 10 years.
Right. And you've definitely seen a positive impact using it, I guess. It sounds
Absolutely.
yeah, nice, man. Um, so what else you do except running Slate, doing awesome products, videos, barbecue? Uh, what else is
That's
going on?
You pretty much nailed it. That's pretty much it. No, I've got a good life. I got some great friends. I'm very happy. I do a lot of activities. My friends socialize. I love to cook, and barbecue is commonly known. And yeah,
Nice. Do you have any favorite spots in LA or in US that is the best barbecue? Because I love to have a great barbecue.
yeah.
Um,
I go to Austin, Texas.
right. Is it the brisket then, or
Yeah, they got amazing brisket and beef ribs, but they got some great spots with some ribs if you like ribs. Some people say you have to go to Kansas City or to get good ribs, but they got some great ribs in Texas as well.
oh yeah, yeah. I love to go to Texas, man. Seems like a great place.
It is.
Um, but yeah, if you ever in UK or London, you should definitely try. Maybe you have tried it, but it's called Hawksmoor. It's a steak restaurant, really famous for their beef.
I'll have to
Um,
try it.
you should try it. It's really nice. And if
Cool.
you like bone marrow, they do that too.
What's that?
They do bone marrow too, which is kind of nice. I don't know if you like that.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah,
So
it's
try
quite
it.
heavy. Nice, man. Yeah, I mean, I don't actually have any more questions. It's a pleasure talking to you.
Pleasure talking. Thank you.
Maybe I can just shoot you one last question. If
Sure.
that's all right.
Yeah,
Um, thanks. So yeah, that is if you have any favorite failure that has set you up for later success.
it's a great question. Failure that set me up for. I'll tell you this. Years ago, I created a prototype for a speaker called the Siren D3, and it never came to market because finally, after I put all this money into it and all this great stuff, it was going to be a $15,000 speaker, and it came to the point where I realized the market for $15,000 speakers is very small, and this didn't make sense.
Hmm.
I realized that I put this product out without doing the proper planning. I didn't I didn't examine the market. I didn't examine, that like I created an end game without really doing any research, and that's something that I'll never do again. From now on, I go into things, I'm very highly calculated, and I research things thoroughly. And that was a very expensive mistake that I'll hopefully not repeat again.
Yeah, yeah. No, I get you, man. But yeah, it's great that you learn from it. That's always the point, I guess.
Absolutely.
Yeah, man. Well, yeah. Thank you, Steve, and Steven, not Steve. Sorry.
Don't worry.
And thanks for the great products. They're great. I look forward to seeing what else is coming out. Do you have anything planned, product wise? I mean, I know you just released quite a lot
Check
of
out.
few.
We just released a lot of stuff, but June's
Yeah.
going to be a fun month. That's all I could say.
Oh, June, you said.
June going to be a very fun month.
Nice. Is that fun as in compressor fun or something else?
I'm
Obviously.
sorry, say it again. I can't tell you what it is. All I can tell you is it's going to be a lot of fun.
Cool, man. I look forward to it. And thanks again for taking your time and Yeah, have a great day.
Awesome. Thank you so much, man. It's a great interview, Nicholas. Thanks, man. Have a good one. Take care.
Thank you, Steven, and thank you, the listener. I hope you enjoyed it. If you liked it, leave a comment below. And again, don't forget to check out the free guide, 3 tested ways to increase your client base. Just go to youraudiosolutions.com, download it, and I hope you're going to find some good stuff in there. Awesome. See you soon.